Mitzpeh Ramon and the Ramon crater. I want to speak a little bit about the area first. We all going to be tour guides, so we know a little bit the geography of Israel. And now I'll speak about the borders of the Negev desert. Okay, so the desert Negev is the Negev desert is kind of a triangle. Who knows what is the eastern side of the western Negev is?
Beersheba, Arad, Eastern Arava, where you came from.
Okay, this is the border over here with Jordan, and I want to open here a geological map. Have you seen these geological maps before?
Some.
Yeah. Okay. Can you hold it with me? Okay. If we look on a geological map, that each color over here represents a different period and different rocks. Okay, so it's very, very hard to understand the area by the geological map, but it's very, very easy to see that over here there is a long line, okay, with the different rocks in it. Okay, this is a rift of the Arava. It's part of the Dead Sea transform fault system. Okay, if you look carefully, you'll see that it's many small faults. It's not a big one, so it's a fault system. It's not a one fault. And this is part of the Great Rift Valley. Okay, Great Rift Valley is a very, very big one that goes 7,000 kilometers from the north at Lebanon all the way to Africa. So this is a geological natural border on one side. Okay, Kapish will continue to the northern side. Okay, what is the northern side of the Negev?
Understand.
Northern side, Beersheba, Arad, on the
Yes,
Negev.
but why this is the northern side of the Negev?
Because this is the watershed line.
Exactly. This is not a natural geological border, it's a climatic border. Okay?
Less than 200 millimeter
Exactly.
precipitation.
Less than 200 millimeters, which is the south part of this line, is the Negev. And why 200? The amount of 200 millimeters of water is
For the
important?
vegetation.
Which kind of vegetation? Wheat. Because you can grow a barley
He said wheat.
with less. So 200 millimeters of vegetation is the minimum amount in order to grow wheat. Okay, without that you can grow still barley and other growth, but not wheat. And in a human from a human point of view, this is the definition of desert. Okay, so we have the northern part, and now the western part of the Negev, the western border of the Negev. What is it?
Egyptian.
Egypt.
Sinai Peninsula.
Okay, so it's not climatic because Sinai and the Negev has the same climate. It's not a natural border because this is there's no
Political border.
It's a political border. Okay, it's an international border, and this is the Egyptian border. Okay, who created this border, by the way?
The Ottoman.
The Ottomans
and the British.
The British. Where the
Right.
British were at that time?
Egypt.
In Egypt. Okay.
In Egypt,
so,
yes.
It's between the Egyptians and the Ottomans. Anyway.
1906.
Anyway,
لا،
during the War of
لا، بعد
Independence, at the
Rashid.
end of the War of Independence, before the end of the War of Independence, if to be correct, the Negev was not under Israeli hands. Ben Gurion insisted that the Negev will be part of Israel, and especially the port of Elat. Why it is important?
It's a port. For trade.
For trade, why? What is the difference between Elat and the ports in the Mediterranean? Okay, you have the access to the Red Sea, and we can see how the Red Sea can affect the economy today. Okay, he wanted to have connection to Africa and to the east, and because that he insisted on that, and not only that, the Negev is half of the territory of Israel. Okay, so because this is the importance of the Negev. But and by the way, the War of Independence ended in the Uvda operation with the conquest of the Negev and Elat. Okay, but this led us to the beginning of Mitzpeh Ramon. And why so? Because the two borders, this triangle of the Negev. Another last thing about the Negev, you can see that it's actually a triangle between three bodies of water. Okay, the Red Sea, the
Dead Sea,
and the
Mediterranean
It's
Sea.
very easy to make it shorter and to remember it by the red med dead triangle.
Oh,
Okay, So, so this is a triangle, but still, if you look over here, we have Jordan, and over here we've got Egypt. And the beginning of Israel, there was a threat, a security threat on Israel, and to go from the Arava, which was away towards Elat, was quite dangerous. So Ben Gurion decided to open a road that will cross the Negev in the middle, and what we have in the middle of the desert, Ramon crater. Okay, so the biggest problem, or the biggest challenge for the engineers that wanted to build this road is to ascend down the cliffs of the Machtesh, of the crater, and because that's the camp of the workers that built this road, the road number 40, it was over here in Mitzpeh Ramon, and this is the beginning of Mitzpeh Ramon, 1951. Mitzpeh Ramon is established as a camp for the workers that built road number 40, afterwards some of them decided to stay here in Mitzpeh Ramon and settle down and be part of this small kind of village. At the same year, okay, in a different place, there was a man called Chagai Avriel. Chagai Avriel was an officer in the Palmach that led later on to the part of the foundation of the IDF after the War of Independence. And then he became an officer, and he became the main officer of the intelligence of the Southern Command. Chagai Avriel got in love in the desert and decided that he wanted to build his house here in the desert, and not only to build his house, he had a dream, he wanted to be a cowboy. Okay? Yeah, a cowboy in the middle of the desert. And because that, he and several of his friends built a kibbutz in the middle of the desert. How do you say cowboy in Hebrew? Who knows? Okay, a cowboy is a shepherd of cows. Okay, cattle in Hebrew, bakar.
Bakar.
Okay, boker is a shepherd of bakar, of cattle. Okay, so he built a kibbutz called the Field of the Cowboys, Sde Boker.
Sde Boker.
Okay, Sde Boker, Chagai Avriel. The same time that they built Mitzpeh Ramon. Okay, and he had a lot of dreams, so it wasn't enough for him. And after 5 years, he decided to come here with 30 members of the kibbutz and to establish another cooperative, something like a little bit similar to a kibbutz, that will quarry the minerals of the Machtesh, okay, mainly gypsum and clay. And they created this kibbutz over here, but it was a very big failure. Okay, we're speaking about 1956. So Mitzpeh Ramon was also kind of a kibbutz, and they started to quarry the minerals of the Machtesh. It was a big failure. After 1 year, the government took over the project and decided that Mitzpeh Ramon will turn to be a town. They struggled very, very hardly. Okay, it was very, very hard for them. First of all, no water. They had to bring the water with tankers from Be'er Sheva. They didn't have a lot of electricity. After 5 years, they had 150 children. The education was very poor here. Medicine, everything was very, very hard for them. But somehow they succeeded, and they gradually started to grow. And the next step happened in 1967. What happened in 1967? Six-Day War. Okay, Six-Day War. Israel tripled its size, but over here it was a catastrophe. And why Israel became so strong that Israel wasn't afraid anymore from Jordan and from Egypt. So they built a new road from the Arava, okay, road number 90 and road number 25 to Dimona. And then there was no need to the road of Mitzpeh Ramon, and the economy was worse. The economy that depended on the passengers to Elat was damaged. And who knows what happened in 1977?
1978, it was the agreement between the Egyptian agreement.
Exactly, the peace agreement, and the people here in Mitzpeh Ramon were very happy because they thought that all of the army bases from Sinai will move to the Negev, and suddenly a lot of officers and good people, wealthy people, at least more wealthy than the people that lived until then in Mitzpeh Ramon, will come to Mitzpeh Ramon. But unfortunately, the agreement was also only took place 5 years later in 1982. And what happened in 1982?
was Lebanon.
Well, it was with Lebanon. All of the bases went towards
To
the
Lebanon.
south, to the north. Eventually, only one army base was built here, and this is the Air Force Ramon Airport. And some of the pilots did came here, but it was not the expectations that they had. And eventually, the next stage was in the 90s when the Soviet Union broke down, and many of the Russian Jews made Aliyah, came to Israel, immigrated, and many
the
of them
desert,
came
they
here.
call it.
The government pushed them over here. High unemployment,
Negev,
as I said
the
about
Negev.
the industrial area, and the thing that saved them actually was the artists and the spiritual people at the beginning of the millennium that turned Mitzpeh Ramon to the new community that it is today. And today Mitzpeh Ramon is a very, very wealthy and a good place to live. You can see the new buildings over there, the new houses, a new neighborhood. And people want to live today in Mitzpeh Ramon. The real estate goes very high here. And today there is about 5,300 people that live in Mitzpeh Ramon. Mostly, they live mostly on tourism, but also people that serve in the army bases around, but mainly on tourism. This is the occupation of the people. And this is about Mitzpeh Ramon. I want you to take a nice look about the Ramon crater. We can see all of the different colors and all of the different rocks in the crater. By the way, most of the rocks that you'll see are erosed rocks, part of the alluvial material that fell from the cliffs into the crater. And because of that, you can't see most of the rocks. You can see only the tops of the hills. And I want you to look at the other side, the other wall of the Machtesh, the other wall of the Ramon crater. You'll see that it's so thick, like the wall that we're standing on. You can see that the other side is actually kind of poor. It has a lot of opening. Okay, this is the cliff on the other side of the crater over here, and it has a lot of cracks in it. And this is because of a fault, the Ramon fault, that broke this wall in many small pieces. So this is the other fault of Machtesh Ramon. By the way, this is a very big difference between Machtesh Ramon and the big and the small crater, because they don't have the same fault, and they are much more easy to observe and to understand them as craters. The Ramon crater is much more impressive. It's much bigger, and it has about 60 different geology phenomena. It's one of the most richest geology spots in the world. For example, the Triassic, the biggest exposure of Triassic rocks, and the Jurassic, and a lot of all of the black spots that you can see are dormant volcanoes or magmatic intrusions. So there are many different phenomena. We'll visit some of them. And now, before we go to the bus, we'll go down the hill to the other side over there, and we'll give a way of an explanation, or a way